When I first heard that Unity 5 is going to be integrating real-time global illumination, I was really stoked, but at the same time somewhat dubious. Traditionally, real-time apps have always been limited to direct lighting, while indirect lighting, bounce lighting, or global illumination have only been used in CG, pre-rendered animated films, which is where I started off as well. Now, there are a few gotchas to Unity's claim, so let's open up init.unity in scenes and check it out for ourselves. As I stated in the intro, this course is not meant to be an intro to Unity, so I am expecting a knowledge of the UI of the actual program. So currently we see that we do have a good amount of geometry here, and all of it is completely black. I'm going to switch on the light visibility and just take a look at what we have. So we've got a hero, and we have the scene, and inside the house we also have some stuff. Okay, now as a quick refresher, global illumination is light bouncing off, or as colloquially termed, bleeds onto other objects. So a red object standing next to a white object will project a red hue onto the other object. What it does is bounce the light from one object to another. Another example would be, for example, lighting a cave. So whereas in direct lighting you would just get the spotlight effect, a cave will bounce the lighting from different points of the cavern, so you get a much more realistic look. As you can make out, I've got a few tabs here, and it'll give some foreshadowing of what we'll be doing next, but you might want to set up something similar. Just drag windows around, and once you've got something you like, click on the layout here, do a save layout, name it whatever. At this point, just open up the lighting window from Window, Lighting. Go ahead, go to Game Object and Light, and create a point light. You'll see that this does absolutely nothing because we don't have lights enabled. If we enable lights, right away we see the effect of this light. Pump out the intensity. If we move it around, this is how lights are used in direct lighting. If you go to Scene here, you will see some familiar options. I'm going to drop this off in the project scene up here so I can get a little bit more room. You'll see some changes in the scene view of the lighting, which was previously just called light mapping. You'll see a baked GI and a pre-computed real-time GI. So what's the difference? Baked GI is what we have been traditionally used to. So the light keeps bouncing off objects that are only marked as static, and then that information is encoded onto a second UV layer that resides in each one of the objects that the light has bounced over. As I explained before, the reason people like using GI is because you get a much more realistic effect of lights bouncing off each other instead of just having the spotlight effect. We're going to go more into using a shader here, and these two things go hand in hand: Unity's introduction of the standard shader and real-time GI. But let's just focus here with the standard shaders we have. As you can see, we're just starting off with just a mobile diffuse shader. Okay, so we've got this light here. The baked GI window, if we check it, make sure it's opened up, we have the resolution up here for pixels per unit, some padding between the actual lighting, whether we want to compress the image, meaning that the image will be compressed, it will be encoded, meaning that it'll take up less data, but it might leave some unwanted artifacts. Indirect resolution is the resolution in pixels for light bouncing. Ambient occlusion is an effect of where you will see some lighting around the corners of the objects. And final gather will improve the quality of the light map. So nothing's free in life. The more of the stuff that you have, the longer it'll take to compute in the editor, and for the most part will also increase the size of the light maps. So let's just, first of all, something that you want to keep in mind is if you go into the object field, or actually even here in the inspector, when I'm looking at the light, I see that, you know, it's a point light, and the baking is set to real time. Now, if I set it to mixed, this will actually allow the light to bake onto these objects. When I click on the objects themselves, I want to make sure that they're marked static. The resolution that I have here is extremely low, 5 pixels per unit, so let's just, for the sake of nostalgia, just bake this scene. Okay, that's really bright, but it's fine, just for the sake of the experiment. As you can see, here we are, we've computed a light map for these objects, so now even if I go in and I turn off the light, we still have the lighting because the lighting is now baked onto these objects. This will not interact with non-static objects. Non-static objects can only be lit by a real-time or a mixed light, which we're going to look into in just a second. Okay, so let's turn this back on, go to scene again, and you're probably wondering about this option here, continuous baking. So now if I just turn on pre-computed real-time GI and I turn on continuous baking, you'll see that I'm starting to bake again, and if I move these things around, I am getting real-time GI. So notice that even if I turn off pre-computed real-time GI, I can still bake in lighting information without using global illumination. In addition to these good old-fashioned lights, Unity has thrown a few more toys into the bag, such as emissive surfaces. But to get to those, we're going to need to learn a little bit about the standard shader. So let's jump in, learn a lot about it, and then we'll combine both together to create a very realistic looking cartoon scene.